Who can it be now? Who can it be now? Hello and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies with special guest Tim Davis. This is the podcast where all three of us went and saw a movie in our local Regal Cinema Theater that I'm sure the three of us are keeping in business right now. We saw a movie, and we're going to talk about it right after the movie in Matt's Honda Pilot in the parking lot. We're going to give our gut reactions, and we're going to try to answer such questions as, should you see this movie? Should you not see this movie? Should you wait for streaming? Should you pass it all together? Can you snack during this movie, or is this a hold off the snacks kind of movie? We try to answer some of those, maybe all of them, maybe none of them. We just try. That's our motto. We try. I am Todd Domer.
And I'm Matt Malloy. Yes, welcome to another episode. Welcome back, Tim. And I think we should also answer the question that I thought you originally said, which is, can you snap during this movie?
Snap. It depends on who's sitting next to you, I guess.
Yes, it does. Well, yes, we saw a movie tonight. We saw the latest installation in the Scream franchise, which would be Scream VI, which if you speak Roman is Scream 6. It's the sixth Scream movie. Yeah, it's a Scream movie, and it's got people in it. If you saw Scream 5, the four kind of survivor people from that movie, the younger survival people, are the main focus of this movie, and they're all in this, reprising their roles, including Jenna Ortega.
Melissa Barrera.
Yes. I think Jenna Ortega is a famous person. I don't know about the
I would agree with that. She's blown up this year.
It's her year.
Yeah, I don't know about
her
the
and
other
Jonathan
one.
Majors.
No, the other actors.
Yeah, it's the year of Jenny Ortega and
Jonathan Majors.
Jenna Ortega.
Yes,
Jenna.
Jenna.
Right?
Jenna.
Yes. I don't know. How do you feel about Hayden? She was in it.
Panettiere does,
Save the cheerleader, save the world. She's
Yeah.
always famous.
And
Courteney Cox.
Yep,
Courtney Cox. Dylan Marone. What's his name?
Dermot Mulroney.
Not to be
Dermot.
confused with the other guy.
Yes, but
Whatever
long-time
his name is.
character actor.
Yes.
What's the other guy who people
Jonathan
mistake?
Schick.
No, it's like the names are so similar that they.
Dylan McDermott,
Dylan McDermott.
guy from Miracle on 34th Street remake.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there was a game. I don't know what
That does
talk
not-
show had the game, but it was like, are we talking about?
Dermot Mulroney or Dylan McDermott?
Yes.
Well, this is Dermot.
Good. Well, I'm glad we got that settled.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Skeet Ulrich is in this movie as well.
And I'll give a shout out to
Briefly.
Josh Segarra, who's another character actor. He was on She-Hulk and he was on Arrow, and he shows up in this as well.
Okay.
Fair enough.
All right. Anyone else that we want to throw out there as a
I think that's
celeb? Okay. Well, what's this movie about?
Nev Campbell's character is referenced.
Yeah.
There you go.
Correct. There are plenty of references to other characters who are no
Long
longer with the
past.
franchise or dead. So, what is this movie about? Well, this movie it takes place a year after Scream 5.
Which is pretty true, like accurate in general. Like, wasn't it only like a
It
year
was a year
ago
ago.
that?
Correct. Correct. Yes. And like I said, the four kind of high school age kids have moved out from Woodsboro, and they've gone to college, or they're living in New York at a college called Blackmore College, and so they're kind of hanging out and trying to piece their lives back together and recover from that shared experience in their own ways. And you've got a couple new people on the scene, who are like roommates and friends and things like that. And then what happens pretty quickly is people start getting killed by people who are wearing ghost face masks. And they're all getting the phone calls with the voice modulator, and it's all happening. It's all happening again.
So that should be the tagline for these movies: is that it's all happening again.
Yes, yes. And so this movie is really focused on the two sisters, Sam and what's the other sister? Tara, yes. They, out of the four survivors who came from Woodsboro, are kind of the focus, especially Sam, who's the daughter of the original killer. We find that out in the last movie, Scream 5. So
one of the original killers.
Right.
There were two original killers, but they
killers.
seem to not really care about the second of the
Sean
original.
Williams-
It's
Sean
all
Williams
about
Scott's
it's
movie.
all about Billy Loomis.
Yes. And so, the movie progresses and people get killed, and there's like this. They determine through DNA testing of masks that are left behind. Each murder that takes place, a ghost face mask is left behind, and they do DNA testing and they find out which of the killer's masks it was, and they're kind of you start to see the pattern. They're going back in time with the masks and the killers. So the movie culminates when they get to one, and then we find out who the killer or killers are or is, and everything is revealed in typical Scream fashion, and we wrap things up.
Yeah.
Courteney Cox reprises her role as Gail Weathers, the nosy investigative reporter, and Hayden Panettiere returns. She was in Scream 4, and now she became an FBI agent, and she's back investigating this case. And so that, throw all these people in the washing machine and they spin around.
Let's see what tumbles out.
Yeah, they spin around and end up either dying or cracking the case. And so, yeah, that's kind of all we can say without too many spoilers. If you've seen a Scream movie before, you kind of know what to expect.
True.
And speaking of expecting, Todd, did you expect to feel the way you feel right now? Tell us about it.
Did I expect to feel the way I'm feeling now?
Yes.
You know what? I did not expect to feel the way that I'm feeling now. And it's mainly because of one thing. And so I thought the start of this movie was great. And it was going in an interesting direction that I thought would have really been an interesting movie. And then they do away with it real fast. And without trying to give... I mean, all this happens at the beginning of the movie, but trying not to give out too much, it's like the idea was there that maybe this movie would just straight up follow the killer as the main character, I thought. And I was like, oh, that's super interesting. Where the main characters are not the victims, the main character is... Ghostface. Or Ghost Faces. And then then it's a twisty turn, and we're back to kind of business as usual. And I was severely disappointed by that. Only because I was like, well, this is fascinating. I got really hooked into it. I was like, this could really turn this whole thing on its head. And which at this point, I'll be honest, if they're going to continue Scream movies, they need to turn it on its head. They each movie they advertise, different, or it's so meta and we're up there, or whatever. But I'm like, it's just the same thing over and over again. Same traps, same everything, with just little different things. And I expect that kind of stuff from, a Friday the 13th or stuff like that. It's almost like that's why you come, in my opinion. But I guess always my hope for these Scream movies was that they would be better and evolving. And they do evolve a little bit from movie to movie. In some movies, they've evolved much more than the others. But in my opinion, it's not enough. It feels like it's the same thing every single time, and not in a fun way, for me at least. And so the fact that this kind of false start got me so hooked into this idea of oh, well, this could be super great. We follow Ghostface instead of the victims. But sadly, no, those dreams were squashed. For this movie, I think I guess an updated thing for this movie is that I feel like they went more hardcore into some of the gore. And I don't know, I guess I dug that. Like, I kind of felt like the last one was really light on that kind of stuff. It was heavy on, like, fake jump scares and stuff. And then when it came to actual, like, the dirty business, it was not very heavy in that. And it was like, This one at least picked that back up, which I'm like, if you're going to go see a slasher film and stuff like that, that's got to be one of the main focuses, is how can we take someone stabbing someone and reinvent it every single time we do this? And I feel like they at least somewhat tried in that area. Like, I feel like we see some stabbings that maybe we haven't seen before of different areas of bodies and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, I guess good on you for putting forth that little effort. But in general, I mean, I think if you listen to my review of the last Scream movie, I'm not a fan of these movies. And it's not just because I'm not a fan of horror movies really in general. I just, there was something special, I think, about the first two, and then it's just all kind of gone downhill from there. I think they're trying with this new cast to bring it all around and stuff like that, but I don't know. It just didn't hit with me. The twists and the twisty turns were, honestly, I think for me at least, by the time I hit the middle of the movie, I had pretty much guessed what was going down. And that kind of sucks. And I felt like they didn't try hard enough to hide the twisty turns, and that could be on some of the actors' performances, I also think. But it didn't all come together for me. So, yeah, I mean, but when it comes to Scream movies, I don't think anything I say is going to determine whether or not someone's going to go see this movie or not. Like, you already pretty much know if you're going to or not for Scream 6. Like, maybe for the first couple, I could see someone new coming into it, but Scream 6, I'm like, you know who you are out there if you're going to like and see these movies. So, I wouldn't say go see this movie just because of my own personal feelings and being like, it was mediocre at best in some areas. But if you're going to see it, you're going to see it. With the upped gore, though, I do feel like this is probably not a snack movie. It's not the goriest movie I've ever seen, but I feel like if you're in the middle of a snack and you see some of the stuff that we saw, it could be disturbing. Mm-hmm. So, happy to actually answer that question this week.
Yeah, but you might want to snap.
You might want to snap, yeah. Every time there's a stabbing, you just want to go to the... Yeah. So, it just wasn't for me. I think anyone who's listened to me talk about horror movies kind of could guess that this one's not for me. It tried. I don't think it necessarily succeeded. I don't see this movie doing gangbusters, but maybe. I've been wrong before, plenty of times. So, it's not going to get a stellar review from me. But I don't know what they could have done to really get a stellar review from me unless kept with what I thought the movie was going to turn out in the first 5 minutes. So, yeah, that's me. I'm prattling on at this point. Tim?
Well, yeah, the thing is, when you get to a sixth movie, you are kind of looking to do what I think you were looking to get out of this movie, Todd, which was a different approach or some new twist from a franchise that markets itself as we are aware of all these twists and franchise changes, and we are still going along with it too. And while I was, like you, a huge fan of the first couple of Scream movies, I thought they were, at the time, genre defining, and we're able to kind of wake up slasher movies into a new era. And then, Scary Movie kind of ruined it after that, but that's okay. But as the franchise is going along here, it does feel like they're stretching it out. Now, for me, full disclosure, Scream 5 I did not see, based on your guys' podcast review of it, which did not sell it on me. And when I know Matt as the horror movie guy, and he didn't like it, then I was much less likely to like it. And since Scream 4 for me was a fine entry, but not anything stellar, I was like, all right, then I'm good. So for Scream 6 for me, these characters were new. So I was following along and interested in their story. I didn't know about the main character, Sam's, being the daughter of Billy Loomis, the killer from the first movie. So that to me was like, oh, that's an interesting hook. Okay, let me go along for this ride. Well, obviously you guys knew more about that than I did. And so
I'll be honest, I had forgotten.
yeah, and I did get invested kind of in their journey and how to deal with a tragedy like that and what to do, and then just the usual twists and turns and who do you trust and all the stuff that comes along with a Scream movie. And I found the characters mostly likable enough to want to be invested in their fate. And the meta commentary that came in this movie, I will say, did feel kind of a forced scene in the middle of the movie where they just kind of like, oh, we have to do that, the breakdown. And it wasn't as clever this time because we're at that point where this has been done. But you're right, the kill count was high and kind of brutal. The killers in this one were pretty, I wouldn't say bold-faced, but definitely aggressive. More aggressive than the usual Scream instead of the more taunting and kind of stalking you on the phone.
Right.
So I give it credit for that and making them a little more ruthless and scary without jump scares and fake scares. But I do agree, as the franchise goes here, if this were the last Scream, I think that this would be a fine ending point the way it wraps up. So I will leave it at that.
All right.
Matt.
Yes, that's me. That's my name.
Yep. Horror guy.
Yeah, so there were things I liked, things I didn't like. I did like... I liked a lot of the references to the horror genre. We got a lot of references to other movies. We got a special shout out to Candyman and the Candyman remake.
Yep.
Both two of my favorite horror movies. Very close to the top of the charts for me when it comes to horror. So always happy to have that little tidbit thrown in there. And yeah, I thought that the deaths were nice and gory and slashery. I would say I really enjoyed myself, except for I think that the movie was about half an hour too long. Mm-hmm. They could have really tightened it up. They could have really shortened a lot of the scenes. I think, which, maybe then you don't get as much backstory or as much suspense building. But I felt like it dragged quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair.
But it was a fine entry in the Scream universe. I thought it was much better than Scream 5, which I checked recently, and Todd and I both rated that movie as 1 out of 5. So we felt that was a pretty brutal. So only had up to go from there, and I feel like they did move in the right direction with this, as far as they're kind of bound by a formula in some ways, but they followed their formula. They did what they set out to do. Their kind of emphasis with this one was what can happen in a horror franchise. And so that was like played up throughout the movie as like, oh, well, we're in a franchise. What are the rules for a franchise horror film? So that was kind of interesting. I didn't like, there's a certain, I'm not going to go into what the tie-in is, but I didn't really like the tie-in. I didn't really like, I liked the characters that we got held over from Scream 5. Okay, the 4 characters that were the survivors, and I guess you can throw Courteney Cox in there too. But I didn't like the plot or the killer involved in Scream 5, and so there's a certain connection back to that killer, and I didn't like that. Mm-hmm. I thought that was like kind of sloppy, and I would have preferred some different motives for for our killers. Put it that way. So, so if it hadn't been this long, I think I would have really enjoyed most of the movie. It's going to get downgraded because of that. But as far as slasher movies go, this was a fine slasher movie. There was plenty of slashing, killing, knife work, good knife work. In fact, almost every death was by knife. There's a couple gunshots, but mostly
Including a shotgun.
Yes.
Yeah,
Including a
of all
shotgun. So I would say if you like slashers, if you like horror, go ahead and pick this one up. If you've liked the Scream movies, sure, watch this entry as well. If you're not really into either of those things, no real reason for you to see this movie. Unless you're a big fan of some of the actors in it or something like that. But yeah, I'd say I pretty much enjoyed it. But it's not for everybody, for sure. So that's where I'll end my useless monologue.
Not useless.
Hey,
to our
it's not
fans.
useless.
Not useless to our fans.
You're right. Sorry.
Well, getting down to business here.
Getting down to the brass tacks.
How many How many-
Masks?
No. That's too obvious. How many bricks to the face would you give this movie?
Bricks to the face.
Which might have been my favorite violent act in
Yeah,
this movie.
that was good.
Obviously, 0 being bad because then you got no bricks to the face. Then nothing's happening. It's just a normal night. Who cares?
Right. No bricks.
And then 5 being the best because that's 5 bricks to 5 faces and maybe different things happen each time. There's a world of possibilities. So let's start with Matt.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm going to give this 3 bricks, but all to the same face. So 3 bricks to the face out of 5, and it's to one face. And I won't reveal who that face is.
Got it.
That's probably good.
But that is what I'm going to go with.
Tim.
3 bricks to the
3
face.
bricks. 3 to the same face.
One of my bricks broke in the swinging of it, so I am at a just above average at 2.6 bricks to the face. Like I said, I think as far as the Scream franchise goes, it's not great, but it's enjoyable enough, and I think that's just enough to bump it just above average for me. Todd.
Fair enough. Well, I'll have to admit that this was a better sit through than the last one. I mean, that's, I've got to be honest in that area. It's still not for me, and I think while the first 2 were like pretty clever, and it was funny to see the kind of meta-ness of it.
Deconstruction.
Yeah. We're at the point where we're 6 movies in and that's still happening and people are still not listening to their own advice and they're still falling into traps that they clearly talked about beginning of the movie. And it's like, yes, I get what they're going for. That's meta. That's supposed to be kind of funny, maybe ironic and stuff like that. But now it's just beating a dead horse. So, totally agree with Matt. I think you could cut a lot from this movie. It's weird because I thought it had a super fast start. Then the middle just kind of drags out.
Yeah.
So pacing was pretty off. So I'm gonna give this 1.7 bricks to the face, and the 0.7 is a different face.
Okay.
So yeah,
So one of your bricks broke on the way.
Yeah. So it's hard because again, if you're a fan of the franchise, you're going to see this movie no matter what. And maybe like because you love the franchise so much, you're going to love this movie because you like all the aspects that we talked about. And if that's true, completely more power to you. Happy for you to have an enjoyable, great movie experience. But for me, already. Like, I am not a horror guy, like I've mentioned several times, but I will see any horror movie with Matt because I feel like it's ingrained into my DNA at this point. It's what we've been doing since I was in high school. So, but this one kind of let me down. Some potential there. I think it's because there was missed potential. And I totally agree with you. You know, the motive of the killer or killers is so dumb, and the connection to the previous movie is really dumb. So, yeah, 1.7.
There you have it. All right. Well, any last tidbits before we wrap things up here?
I would say to applaud one scene that I thought was probably the best scene in the movie, at least the most suspenseful and different feeling.
Was it the
was
brick
early
hitting
on
the face?
in the convenience store. I felt like that just felt different than the rest of the franchise to this point. It was actually scary,
I will 100% agree with that. It was almost like it was refreshing to see the brazen nature
in a setting, in a public setting like
right
that.
of these
Killers.
killer or killers
Yes.
in this movie. There were several scenes where things just took place in public places, and they were, you know, they were just swinging for the fences, and I was like, you know what, that feels nice.
That was new and different, at least.
I cannot get behind the subway scene.
Yeah, that one
because
was more.
it's dragged out, and if you're a person who's been through a Ghostface killer thing and you see anyone in a Ghostface killer mask that is slowly creeping up on you on the train,
probably the one. Yeah.
and everyone around you's asleep or whatever, start screaming, start waking people up. Like that's the thing that drives like me nuts watching the Scream movies now.
Yeah.
So, but I agree with you
that convenience.
it was because it was so different. It made it more intense.
I agree. Yes, there was something about it that was like, whoa.
So.
I agree with both of those comments. And I thought that I would share, you know, we've talked about kind of the nature of the Scream franchise and how when Scream 1 and 2 came out, that they were kind of genre changing and kind of reviving of the slasher film, bringing it into the modern era, if you will.
Sure.
Acknowledging the tropes and yet doing them as well.
Exactly. And I will say that Scream 1 was the highest grossing slasher movie of all time for a long time, until it was one of the Halloween movies that came out that
probably the first one. I mean,
first
not the original, but the first of the
of
the reboot or whatever.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So anyway, that's, you know, that kind of shows the weight of this franchise and what they've accomplished.
Totally.
So
not taking away from the originals at all. They just haven't evolved enough.
Oh yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that will wrap up this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies with special guest Tim Davis. And we reviewed Scream VI, aka 6, and we gave it an average rating of 2.4 and 1/3 of a brick to the face.
Just under.
So just below average.
I was happy to bring that just below average.
Yes. Good work. Good work, Todd, on meeting your accomplishment there.
That's right.
So, you know, a little bit below average, I think, for a standard movie. And I think that's...
You do need to, yes. I do think it's hard to go into this without having seen at least some of the other ones.
Right. So, yeah, that's where we ended up. And thank you for listening to this old podcast and downloading and subscribing and all those things. And we will see you next time.
Da 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 da.